IT and digital revolution. So, and the question was, policymakers, they have to consider how they can actually do it. What should we do? What should we change? Because their generations are the future. And the future is all in the digital economy, digitalization is the whole way with that. And we need to make sure our young graduates can actually benefit from this revolution, or simply they can actually find a job. So that's what the question. So the idea of how higher education in Arab countries can reform, not really the word reform, but how they can reconnect themselves back to the discourse of sustainable development, particularly knowledge-based economy or inclusive growth, is quite important. So we thought we will bring all of you, policymakers, leading universities, professors, or even senior academics, to try to discuss as a very short meeting, which is only 2.5 hours, 3 hours. But we are planning to hold a larger conference where we bring more people actually from the Middle East and Arab countries. Although I know focusing on Middle East and Arab countries, we have to be more specific. But that's one of the first problems we face. When you talk about Arab countries, you have to talk about Middle East. When you talk about the Middle East, you have to talk about Arab countries. So this is the idea. What I thought I will give here, because I know all of you going to bring the 3-5 or the 5-6 presentation will be focusing on specific issues about reconnecting, or if you like, the role of universities or higher education in achieving or helping their governments to achieve this global issue of knowledge economy. I thought I would just give a very quick platform from our own way, how do we see the problem, or where are the key issues. So the way we will run this, we will go through all this, everyone has his or her presentation, and we'll try to finish by the break time, which is 3:30, hopefully. And then when we come back from the break, Professor Reed, she's kindly going to give us a reflection on what she has here based on her experience. She's a cultural attaché, but also she's a prominent professor in Cairo University. She's an academic in the first place, if I can say that. So we can listen to her reflection after she will listen to all of us. And then we will take questions from the audience. Hopefully we will finish by 4:30 or 4:45. So, do you want to go through UEM, or shall I just do my presentation quickly? Or?
Do your both.
Okay, that's fine. No problem.
What's that
mean? Yes. Okay.
So whilst I was doing that, ladies and gentlemen, I forgot to do the housekeeping with you. Obviously, fire escapes are that way, and there's a toilet. It says disabled on it, but everyone uses that. Just down the corridor.
Also, we have questions from the... Now, let me start quickly. So I'm going to look into higher education role in achieving knowledge-based economy in Arab countries. And I'm going to do this as quick as possible, because I think just to set up the scene, if you like. I have this slide which I like all the time. I think you all agree with this one. If knowledge is quite I mean, it's nice to say man's mind, once it's touched by a new idea, never regain its original direction. And I think that should be the concept for higher education. We have to think there's a huge potential from our young or youth in universities, which we really want to explore. Now, I like this statement, which summarizes the work with that. I always take this slide with me. Today, more than ever before in human history, the wealth or poverty of nations depend on the quality of higher education. I think this is summarized all big institutions, if you like, ambitions, or the way they argue the point about the role of higher education in World Bank, UNESCO, World Health Organization. The same concept is about, they have so much hope higher education can help countries in that sense. So revolutionary breakthroughs in the knowledge economy are leading to remarkable changes in the way forward-looking nations can stimulate their graduates. In this era of global skills and knowledge race, universities cannot fail to realize, accept, and accomplish its natural and ascribed roles and strategic aim for national development. So really the role of university is to achieve or to help their countries achieve a national development strategy, whatever the strategy of that country. Now, 2013, we had Professor who unfortunately couldn't be with us here. Professor Hawaj, when he came to us in Brighton, it was our, one of our major conferences. At that time, I remember who is the president or one of the founder of Ahliya University in Bahrain. He was chair or the president of Arab Private Universities Council, the whole Arab Private Universities Council. And I took this slide from his presentation where he said, these are the challenges at that time for Arab countries in terms of education. And he was referring to, for example, re-regulation and increasing centralization of education sector. He was referring to lack of diversification of educational opportunities, not linked or best aligned linked to variable sustainable career and so on. Cross-country redundancies in educational offerings, and he was also referring to gender inequalities, the return of female participation in the knowledge economy, lack of culture of quality, and then he was also referring to lack of integration of lifelong learning in the curriculum. So that was based on his experience as an academic. He was a professor in Bahrain University. And then I went to our own way of doing research here. So we are in the UK, so let's look to the international, how the world look at the same issues of challenges. And I looked into it, we have looked into lots of reports and data from World Bank, United Nations Development, UNESCO, INSEAD. INSEAD, they produce the innovation, the Global Innovation Index every year, WHO and so on. Now, quickly, we also looked into companies, because this is quite important, like Starbucks. Companies which really use knowledge and have used knowledge in order to achieve competitive advantage. For example, like, Starbucks, they use knowledge management to help them understand their customers, how to improve the customer service. We looked into companies, consultancies, USDA, and FAO. Most of the knowledge-based initiative by businesses or at organization level started in the United States. And interestingly, or not surprisingly, from the military. The military, the US military, is the first entities to use knowledge management in terms of improving the performance. We also refer to this case study we did in UAE, where we established a knowledge management. So we looked into all this. Now, what we found, one of the main issues is, number one, when you go and talk to some vice chancellor in the Arab countries, you will find lack of awareness and understanding. Not because he doesn't know or she doesn't know, but when we talked to many people in the Middle East or Arab countries, just started actually. His Excellency Dr. Fawad Al-Faris is the culture and the Sheikh of Kuwait, so you want coffee or tea or anything, or you okay?
I'm fine.
So we just started. So welcome. We get through your audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Probably in the break you can know everyone else. Okay. So when we look at the Arab countries, we find one of the problems, even for government levels, even Ministry of Higher Education or even Ministry of they still lack of understanding what knowledge management means or knowledge economy means. Some people, they say it's more of an elusive word, where you say to me, Allam, we know economy and economy. So there is a confusion about this word. I know there is no work being done, like Professor Robert has done or Professor Ahmed. There is many policies reports from World Bank, but still you can find there is a lack of awareness and understanding of the problem, lack of time. Some universities, they say to you, the priority for us now is not really knowledge economy. Our priority is to improve this or do research, or like here in the UK, every vice chancellor will talk to you about direct publication, submission, and so on. Lack of strong management support, that's another problem. And quickly, cultural change management. So the culture in the Arab countries still they need to absorb the issues. It's a different scene. Opposition of technology, I know this sounds a very strange word, but yes, in some government or even in universities, still you have to fight to get to talk to them about changing this system or this might be better. I was talking to the professor earlier, funding, timing, and others. So quickly, I know you most, particularly those who are from the Arab countries or those who are actually not in the Arab countries, they know this better than me and all us here. But this is how the way they see the Arab countries. So number one, the most important part of the way is the 21st century. This is a quote I have seen in many newspapers and everything. So the most important part of the world now is considered the Arab countries, that area of the Middle East. Secondly, rarely out of the headlines in all international news, the main key issues always when we talk about Arab countries is Islam, role of the US and Israel. This is the key global themes when it comes to any discussion about the Arab countries. Produces the majority of the world oil. This is important because the regional Arab countries, they hold the major oil producer like Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, UAE and so on, Qatar and so on. Countries with substantial degree of industrialization and those with very little modern industry. Aspiration of diversifying their economies from oil to farms and so on. This is where the knowledge economy comes. Most of them like Qatar, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, they won't really achieve OCD. So we just talk about Qatar. Hind, Dr. Hind, thank you. Yeah, welcome. Hind Juru is from Qatar, from Doha Institute of Studies. We just started, so this is general features where we come. The most important thing here, a desire to create satisfying employment opportunities for young populations. Our countries hold one of the largest number of young population is already unemployed. There are millions of Arabs, young generations unemployed, and that's another issue. And most importantly, at the time we did this research, only 52% of Arab countries have a national research and education network. What I mean by that, we associates UAL, even here, don't talk about European projects that here, we as universities here in the UK or in Europe, we are well connected, in France, with Lille and so on. But in our countries, that's not the case. I'm going to listen to all of you to see what you think. So understanding the nature of the problem, challenges and opportunities in the region is very difficult for many people outside these territories. That's why we have now us here and people from the region to help understanding. This is an old quote, but I still go back to it. When this was said in UNESCO 1999, almost 18 years ago, he said, globalizations bring us into contact with one another, but he was just quickly, he said, what is the worry is there is a real risk of true civilization in making one based on the capacity to generate and utilize knowledge. Unfortunately, most of the time, this is referring to OECD countries who generate and produce knowledge is us here in the UK, in Europe. This is how it referred to it. And those who others, I didn't like this word, but that's what he said, passively receiving knowledge from abroad and deprived from the ability to modify it. So you're not just producing knowledge. I disagree with this. I know that I totally think there is lots of knowledge being produced in our countries, but we can also listen to you and see why it's not showing there. So the way it's facing, so this was a quote. I went to the United Nations in 2012. This was in Hamilton, United Nations University. They invited 40 people to come to Canada. We went, and the Foreign Office is all there. We went there, and there were many organizations, countries represented. I was shocked when I went to the meeting. I found not a single person from the Arab countries. And I immediately read that question. I said, this is the United Nations, and this is the United Nations University, and you have people from all over the world representing big organizations, NGOs, whatever. Well, this is the faces. Yes, there is Arab. This is guy in Sudan. This is the chair of the United Nations Universities, but he was in his capacity as the United Nations chair of the United Nations Universities Council. But there are people from Brazil, Latin America, Europe, Australia, Africa. I think this is where we need to understand the global issues. Where are the Arab countries? And I was very surprised. Now, I know you all agree, we are no longer on this side. The rules of the game are changing. We are moving from structured to knowledge-based. So this is where we are now. I think this is what Tony Bear said before. We are a knowledge-based economy. This is a famous book from Colin. He said, can we manage knowledge? And the answer was, we cannot manage knowledge. But actually, we manage the environment in which knowledge is produced. Now, I won't go through this. I just thought I would just bring it. Everyone agrees in literature, practical, well-impact, knowledge is critical for development, for sustainable development. It can help you to do anything. Knowledge is a source of wealth. Applied to tasks we already know, it becomes productivity. Applied to tasks that are new, it becomes innovation. So we all agree on this. Now, the example the World Bank always uses, he said, when countries apply knowledge, they can grow further. And this is a famous graph always the World Bank referred to it. In 1958, both African countries, represented here by Ghana, they had the same GDP like Korea. And then in 1990, you can see Ghana is already here, and you can see how much Korea here. And all analysts, economists, said this difference is attributed to knowledge. So there's no disagreement here. This is the latest. Now, this is Qatar National Vision, and this is Saudi Arabian National Vision for 2030. And you can see they both emphasize on knowledge, UAE, all our countries, they have that aspiration to transform their economies to knowledge base. And if you go to all of them, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and so on. Bahrain, yes sir, I forget Bahrain, all of them. Egypt, all of them, yes. Kuwait, we have done lots of Kuwait, yes. Now, quickly, this is a knowledge economy, what we're looking for. There's all pillars you have to look at: ICT, innovation, education, and economic and institutional regime. But the issue is, higher education can play a role in all of this. Higher education can play a role in improving the curriculum, producing graduates who actually can capture the benefit of the digital economy,
universities have a role in teaching innovation, like this center which is inviting us here, the Center for Innovation Management and so on, and so on. So I will not go through this, but quickly, snapshots. This is all report, so it's not my way. This is a report, we just manipulate the data to get some ideas. If you look to the Arab countries or the Middle East, I will look through one by one. ICT. In the ICT, you can see here, the work is led by Korea, but if you see the top Arab countries is Bahrain, but what's important here, Bahrain is actually number 27 worldwide. So there is a huge break in Arab countries. So Bahrain is the leading in ICT, then followed by Qatar, UAE, and so on and so on. This is just a snapshot. But what we normally, I'm sure you all do, what we normally do, we try to see how countries are progressing. So if you go in 2010, Bahrain was number 48, in 2015 is 27. So they jumped. This can give you, if you look into Qatar, 37 to 31, UAE 49 to 32, and so on. This is snapshot. UAE in 2011 was run by the United Nations report as one of the countries, one of the few countries, the only country in the whole region, but one of the few countries worldwide, which has managed to meet the target of the United Nations of higher than 50% penetration mark for fixed broadband access. So the UAE the target for all countries, not Arab, all of them. One of the few countries achieved that. One of them is Arab countries was UAE, and so on. Example of Bahrain here was I have to move quickly. If you look into, this is another important thing for the knowledge economy, which we call it digital native. The digital native is the number of people, you can see population of network use, age 15 to 24, with 5 years or more online experience. Again, who is leading here is again is Korea. But if you look to the map here, you can see Saudi Arabia here, 9.1. There's so many digital natives in Saudi Arabia. So we are, so you need to look into all aspects. If you look into other countries like UAE, Kuwait, and so on, this is all our countries here. One of the highest average, I mean, this is about Korea. Now, in terms of least connected countries, some countries are doing very well, like Egypt, for example, you can see. So in Egypt, for example, it's 2.33. Also, so Egypt is well connected, Saudi Arabia as well. Most of the Arab countries you can see here, UAE and so on. So we have to look at the picture from different dimensions. This is also another interesting one. There is some way being initiated now in the US. I'm interested in this way, if someone interested, is to link knowledge economy index and to see the relationship between the knowledge economy and the environmental sustainability index or the sustainability index and freedom of the net. If the country have freedom on the internet, does that help you to achieve this? And if you look into Sweden, which is the leading in the knowledge economy, you can see Sweden, for example, here, where you can see anything green is free. So you can access the internet as well. Anything, this is from the US. But you can see most of our countries in the Arab countries are in the not free. Therefore, there is either an argument this might have contributed to our not achieving high knowledge economy. Again, another pillar innovation where we are doing very well. Innovation index is done by, what is it, by INSEAD. And you can see in 2017, I mean, Switzerland is the top. In Arab countries, well, this way you have to look into Israel, whether it's part of Middle East and so on. But if you look, UAE was 38, it's become 41. And then you have Turkey, KSA. The reason we include other non-Arab countries because for comparison. So you can see also the picture here. So if you look into Qatar, for example, it's number 50 worldwide. And it used to be 43. And UAE is from 38 is 41. So you can see that. But you can see also other countries like Algeria, which I'm sure North Africa, for example, Ghana knows better than this. But worryingly countries like Sudan, what's surprising because Sudan is well connected with IT, but it's still scoring very low. There is an issue here. Again, this is university where they need to play a role here. I'm not going to spend time here, but universities, they really need to help their graduates really doing good, if you like, or understand innovation better. A classic example is this Nestle coffee. I'm sure you, I don't know if you heard about it. But Nestle, because it's a very famous coffee producer worldwide, they went to some scientists and they said to them, can you produce coffee in can? And they said to them, we can. And they did a chamber inside, they put the coffee inside, and there is a gas here, or chemical liquid. When you open this, it will warm up and then the coffee will become very hot. It's an innovative product, very clever, but it didn't work, it didn't reach the market because people didn't like it, because people didn't like coffee like this, they like that coffee. People like coffee to go to Starbucks to relax, they don't like to have a can in front of them. Because coffee means relaxation. So you can see big companies like this, they can lose when it comes to innovation. These people invest so much money for innovation. So countries, they have to be also careful. Quickly, research and development, this is another big word. You can see Qatar here is leading in terms of how much money they spend on research and development, followed by UAE, Oman, Bahrain, Tunisia, and so on and so on. I know Syria situation now, we don't know. This is 7 years ago data for them. But the problem is even data, you can't find new data. It's quite difficult to find data on R&D in Arab countries. This is another warning thing, origin of patents and origin of scientific citation. You can see there's a map. The Arab countries, mostly here, empty. The map is almost empty. We are not producing scientific publications, well, we do, but they're so small. To the extent you have to scale up the map to see. Most of the science is cited here. And that's the danger. We can now get people to prescribe medicine for us. If we can produce our knowledge, then we can be cited ourselves, we can actually solve our problem. You can see this is from the World Bank. Education, you can see leading countries like Norway, Israel, as you can see again, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait are doing well, and you can see the situation here. All this I'm happy to share it with you. Number of universities is growing fast, you can see here. But Saudi Arabia is one of the examples World Bank referred to. They have moved quite a lot in terms of education. This was lots of reform by the previous King Abdullah to transform the education system in Saudi Arabia, and they moved a lot in terms of transforming the education system. Tunisia also is being cited by American reports as also doing quite well. Quickly, MEKEI top 10 GCI, Global Competitiveness Index. UAE, Qatar, so on. This is from the World Economic Forum. So this is just to help. Knowledge Economy Index, Sweden led the way. Then the first one was leading is UAE, followed by Bahrain. But you can see next to Bahrain, they actually went backwards. They used 2 steps back. But remarkable progress by countries like Oman. They moved 18 steps in the knowledge index. Then you come to Malaysia, but come to Saudi Arabia, 26 steps. Now, some of the concern was these 2 countries. When I was in Kuwait, and I remember the parliament, I found myself suddenly in all the news because I said that, but that wasn't my way. That was, so you can see, you need to, countries are in different stages, but they need to be analyzed. What is going on here? What is happening here? And I think there is lots of work being done in Kuwait, and I will tell you about that. Kuwait is now leading in that knowledge economy. I will show you that. This was 4 or 5 years ago. And so you can see countries like Tunisia, they are moving, Algeria, that's because of you, Professor. And we work very hard in it. Okay, now this is quickly, coherent strategy for higher education role in knowledge building. I think the higher education, they have big role to play with people in terms of capacity building, capability, skillful people, people in people. Training them, we're not going to say let's focus on students. We have to focus on the people outside the person. Executives, managers, whatever it is. So another thing is to become like a house for ideas. That's what many universities are. You can see this campus when you work it out in the break, you can see. You can see how it's being configured to become an environment for ideas. Easy, you sit down, you can create ideas. So really this is what's missing in the other countries. You don't have to think of this old classroom, you have to think of how to generate ideas, how you make a conducive environment. So these are critical. Cooperation. And number one, they have to cooperate within the region. And I gave example in UAE before. I don't know if you know that. One of the best research in the world in GIS is actually not in America or in the UK, is in UAE, in the Ain city. They have the most of weight on GIS. They have in Saudi Arabia, one of the top countries in the knowledge about desalination of water is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the largest country which desalinates water. They have knowledge, wealth of knowledge, but are we cooperating? Do we know each other? No. So there they have the lots of work in agriculture and research and so on. So this is very important. Now you have capacities, you have to see, consider that. So this is a meeting with Hawad, which I referred to him before. Now, learning from Taiwan, this is the example I always refer to. Taiwanese governments, when they used to send the students to do a PhD in London or in New York or in Sweden, they don't wait for him like most countries and the Arab countries. They wait for Allam, they send him to the UK to do a PhD. They wait for him until he finish and come back, relax, get married and have time, and then start to produce or to benefit from his knowledge. The Taiwanese, this is a famous classic example. When officials began traveling to Silicon Valley in the 1960s and 70s, long before most of the world even aware of the Silicon Valley, when they send their students to America to study PhD, they send them while they are there case studies from the countries to work on solving. So if I'm a PhD student from Bahrain, Bahrainis will send me, they'll be in touch with me to solve some problems while I'm here, so I can use it as case studies. We don't just send them and to do a PhD and wait for them until they come. So that's a very classic example, well documented in the Silicon Valley. And the advice of the Silicon Valley-based citizen, Taiwanese policymakers attempted to mimic many other aspects of the Silicon Valley model, including links between industrial and public research institution and the creation of venture capital industry to provide the financial support. So that means their government, they were involved with their PhD students before even they finish their PhD. That's something I think is quite example. Now, I would like to finish here. This is from an in UAE, and I remember everyone now agree we need to change. And if you like, the spirit or the essence before we have a change, it's not we don't like this culture, no, it's about managing change. We cannot say we don't like this way of doing this, we have to do it this way, but how do we manage this transformation, how do we manage change? And without managing the change, you can't get the knowledge economy in place. So this is critical. You can see he said here, this is in Arabic, but I will leave it here, but sustained improvement in productivity requires very substantial social transformation, education, and so on. So this is very important. I like this, and I have this picture with me for many years, and this is a project we did called Musharaka. So then I just finished my presentation with what Hawaii said last time. He said there is a paradigm shift in education. And he mentioned all these items. I will share this slide or the whole presentation, I will share it with you. But just quickly, by reinforcing methods of teaching, a student center rather than a structure center, and so on. And this is all based at the time he was the chair of the Arab Private University Council. Quickly to conclude, we need to strengthen science, technology, policy making and development institutions. We have to build efficient STI infrastructure in most universities. I have seen that. I've been in Qatar, in Kuwait, and so on. Maximizing the impact of research on knowledge. A good example is Qatar Foundation. Have to maximize the benefit. Impact is critical now in the UK for universities. You cannot just be doing research, you have to show impact. Promote the transfer of knowledge generated and held in higher education institution and public sector to the wider economy to enhance economic growth. All countries should have the capacity to access and contribute to a shared knowledge base. So Kuwait should have access to a global or Arab knowledge base. Saudi Arabia, Sudan, Tunisia. This is not happening. In the UK it's happening, in Europe it's happening. We are having one pot of knowledge. We take from it and we drink in it. We have that in Europe. That's, I think, critical. Open access to data information. It takes so long to get permission to publish anything in most Arab countries because it has to go through lots of signatures. And you might have to wait 1 year to get an okay to publish anything about any. So this is another regional scientific cooperation. It has to happen. It's not happening that much. Creating an enabling environment for technological learning, building capacity for appropriate technology, and so on. Examples of the work we have done. This is a project we have done in UAE. This is the first knowledge economy in Sudan. This is all Arab police officers. We have trained them. So we have been engaging. This is the work we have done in UAE, which was under the government. But then we have this model. We have done lots of things. But this is the one I really want to focus, to give you 1 second. This is the latest engagement we had with the government of Kuwait. This is the National Knowledge Economy Initiative under the Amir himself. And Kuwait is taking this very seriously, and they have initiated a complete separate entity called the National Project for Knowledge Economy. And they brought people, this is just example of the 60, but there were 20-something. Welling Bank, this lady is very famous here. She is the chair of the Web Foundation here in the UK. This is the head of the higher scientific research, more of like ASR here. And this is from one famous, this is used to be the director of the Italian National Council and so on and so forth. Welling Bank from NCI. But they took this initiative very seriously. I'm very happy when I saw this said to me. The recommendation will immediately be taken seriously for implementation by Minister of, sorry, this is Arabic, sorry, I'm not talking with Arabic. But this is the Minister of Planning in Kuwait, and this is the Director of the project, this is the Secretary. What it says here, Sobeya, which is the Minister, adopting the recommendation of the knowledge economy to practical action, and they have initiated an agency to implement the outcome. So you can see there is huge work is being happening in our countries. We have done this work also. This guy from Saudi Arabia, this is a thing even in Europe here, they found it as one of the first work to be done on innovation on the renewable energies. So there is huge work being done. We did this with Kuwait University, best practice of business incubator. This is the dean, this is one of the senior lecturers there, developing a roadmap for Arab countries. This is a work we have done for the whole Arab League before, reviewed all Arab countries. These are our journals. We're working on this with Dr. Rahim. And I will finish here. But the idea of this is to just give a platform before you give us your specific perspective. The picture globally is how it might look like this. So I think this might help people to fit in. And so don't take it as that's how we did, but this is just a collection of ideas from different sources, different perspectives. And I think I should stop here.
Please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.